How old is Christine?
Christine.
Oh.
Canicula, Christine. Christine. Christine.
Dear listener, today's going to be a good day, and here's why.
Because today we're talking about the evil side of Broadway. Today we're talking about villains. I'm Becca.
And I'm Eni, and this is Sincerely Us, a podcast for the casual musical theater fan. Hi, Becca.
Dab, dab, dab.
Oh my god, you can't do that while I'm talking.
Yeah, I know, but I still think it's funny. This episode is going to be so much more fun than last week's episode.
Well, we don't know that because we don't know how much of last week's episode we cut yet.
Yeah, but that's okay. You can leave this part in so that people just wonder.
Last week's
I was crazy.
episode is potentially a little intense. We don't know because we're recording this a little early.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna be a little... even though we're talking about the evil side of Broadway, apparently, spooky, we're in a little bit of a better mood and a lot more upbeat, and it's going to be a lot more exciting.
Today's gonna be a good episode, and here's why. I hope you like those claps.
I hate you so much. Alright, first of all, Becca, what are your potatoes this week?
My potatoes they're kind of my potatoes from the past in general. So, my potatoes are pumpkin spice is back.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
You right.
Now, I am not a pumpkin spice latte kind of person. I just like pumpkin in my coffee at Dunkin' Donuts.
Have you tried? I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
It's okay.
Starbucks also has a pumpkin cold brew.
I know. I haven't tried it yet.
I
went to go get
either.
it in Boston, and they were just out of it. And I was like, rude.
You know what they weren't out of at the Starbucks in Boston?
The cup that you've been looking for forever, but you were sleeping, so I didn't know to get it.
Yes, the answer is always yes. So if you find it, I would love that cup, please. Thank you.
Eni is looking for a specific cup.
It's their like Halloween edition of the like black matte tumbler like cup, and it has like little spikies on it.
It hurts my hand.
I love it so much, and I want it so much.
Well, I found 2 of them in Boston, but Eni was sleeping. So she did answer me.
Thank you so much. Okay, back to positivity.
Yeah. So at Dunkin' Donuts, I get a cold brew with just almond milk and half the pumps of pumpkin, because otherwise it is way too much.
Oh, I do the same thing with the pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks.
Yeah,
like I always
too
get
much.
half the amount of whatever pumpkin they do.
Yeah. So that is number 1 this week. Number 2, gotta be a real shock. All I've done is listen to The Lightning Thief, so that's my number 2. I still love it.
Wow.
10 weeks in a row.
Listen, The Lightning Thief can't be on your potatoes like every week for the rest of your life. That's not
Okay,
allowed.
this is my 1.
Okay, I'm just letting you know this is your 1. That's it. You don't get to use it again.
Okay, so everyone just know it is always there. I'm like behind the scenes.
It's the
just
4th.
there.
It's the silent 4th potato.
Yes. And then the third one is that dance started this week, and I got to see all of my students again, and it was great. And it's going to be a really good year. So yeah.
Yay, dance.
Yay, dance.
Okay, so my potatoes are as follows. Number 1, this past weekend, I went wedding dress shopping with Christy, and she actually, she picked out a dress, and I'm super excited for her, and I'm super happy, and I tried on a bunch of bridesmaids dresses.
Wait, did she pick the last one you sent me?
I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't send pictures to anybody.
Oh, just kidding. So, editing Eni, cut that out. I was trying to make conversation.
I'm pretty sure she knows I sent you a picture because you guys were talking through my text messages yesterday anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she picked the last one that I sent you. The one where she like was under the sign that said that she said yes to the dress.
Oh.
And
She's so cute.
she's adorable, and her dress is gorgeous, and it was me and her mom and her, and it was great, and we all cried, and it was a whole thing. And I'm super excited for her wedding in March, and I need to find a dress because I tried on a bunch of bridesmaids dresses, but I wasn't in love with like completely in love with a singular dress.
Yeah. It's hard.
I hate shopping. Okay, and then number 2, Saturday is Linton's birthday, and we finally figured out what we're gonna do for his birthday. We're gonna go karting and arcading and all of the things, and then we're gonna go to brunch at a place that he's been wanting to go to for a while. So I'm super excited.
Oh my God, I love brunch.
And he's getting old.
getting old.
Yeah, you're right. He's turning 31.
Yeah, he's old. He's already old. He's robbing the cradle is what he's doing.
No, he's only 3 years older than me.
It's still funny. I love making that joke. I'll make that anytime. Even if my parents are 3 months apart and I tell my mom she's robbing the cradle.
My mom and dad, I mean, they're obviously not together now, but my mom and dad are 3 weeks apart. No, 2 weeks apart. My mom's born on November 15th and my dad's December 6th. So my mom's
So
like
funny.
2 weeks older than him.
That's so funny.
And then my third potato is that as of release of this episode, you will be in Miami in 11 days.
Woo! It's my favorite number.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Because you have to be 11 to go to Hogwarts. And so 11 has always been my favorite number because of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like that. My favorite number is 9. Not that you asked, but it's fine.
I didn't care.
Wow.
I am a straight savage today.
All right then.
Well, because
Wow,
I've also been listening to The Lightning Thief. I have been listening to Lizzo.
I quit.
All right, guys, this was the last episode of Sincerely Us.
We made it 11 episodes. That's as much as we can do.
And it's the 11th episode.
Oh, that's so cute. I
love 11.
11th
Yeah,
episode. You're going to be here in 11 days. September's a good month, man. Hopefully there's not another hurricane coming.
Wait, I thought this was coming out on September 11th.
It is.
So, it's the 11th episode coming out on September 11th, and it'll be 11 days until I see you.
What is happening? It's September 11th. There's 11 days until you're here. And it's our 11th episode. That's a lot of 11s.
It's my favorite number.
You're having I mean, I know we're recording this before this comes out, but because that's how that works. But I hope you're having a really good 11 day.
I should meet Millie Bobby Brown today.
Huh? I get it. I was like, I don't get it, but then I got it. Sorry, a little slow right now. I mean, I feel like any day is a good day to meet Millie Bobby Brown, but yeah, that makes sense.
We're going to do this episode about villains in the same way that we did the Sidekicks one, because we have 4 that we prepared, and then there's one that we had already talked about that we're going to talk about together. So it's going to be a total of 9
That's
villains.
so much talking. I'm ready.
Technically it's 10, but you'll see why.
Spoiler.
So we're talking about 9 shows,
Well-
but 10 villains.
Well, actually, oh, well, never mind. We'll just dive in and then it'll be more
Okay.
people.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so the first person that I have on my list is the Wizard from Wicked. So it's funny because you think of the Wizard of Oz, and while the Wizard isn't who he says he isn't the villain in that movie, show.
Both.
The Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East are both the villains in that show.
And the heroes in Wicked.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
I don't really like Nessa, but that's
I feel
another
like
story.
Nessa's a lost cause. She's like a stage 10 clinger. Anyway, so the Wizard is definitely maybe not so much a villain, but the antagonist in this show. He is still that same, he's just a regular guy playing up the fact that he's this, wonderful person. But then you find out in the beginning that he just, slipped into town and slept with Elphaba's mom and, dipped. And possibly drugged her. I'm
definitely
confused.
drugged her.
I'm confused as to what the green potion in Wicked is, so,
See, I never thought that he slept with her mom. I always thought that he just gave her that potion and she was already pregnant. Is how I got it.
I always saw it as, he just,
Got in there.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was both. Why not
I don't
both?
know. I need some clarification on
Because,
that.
I think the green potion is why she's green.
Yes, that I completely
And
understand.
why she has powers.
Yeah. Well, doesn't Madame Morgul say that she has powers because she's from both worlds?
Yeah, so maybe that other guy is also her dad. Because her daddy dad, the one that, she calls her dad,
Father.
is magical. Yeah.
Yeah, but Madame Morgul says that she's from both worlds, which means that her mom being from Oz, and then the wizard being from not Oz. That's why.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So maybe your theory makes more sense.
Okay, yeah, I think that's why I always took it that way.
Maybe. I've only seen the show once.
Oh,
So whenever you talk about Wicked, I always have to like dive deep into my memory from 2014.
Yeah, and that's definitely from the show and not the cast album. Like, that's a spoken part. So he's not really a villain, except for the fact that he wants to, like, imprison animals and not let them talk. So yeah, a little villainous. But he wants to basically be the ruler of this entire place that he just, like, stumbled upon, which, whatever. He's, I guess, a hidden villain is what I would kind of classify him as, because, again, like, he's the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Like, everybody loves him. Everybody thinks that he's all-powerful, all-knowing. Like, he came in his balloon from another land, and he has to be good, right? And you find out that he's not. He's just an average Joe that got lost and ended up in this world and is using his like stardom and fame,
his charm,
to kind of do terrible things.
Right.
I don't think he's that complex.
No.
Like, I don't think he's, like, by any means the best villain on this list. Or at least on my list.
Because while he's like the actual villain, like, when you think of Wicked, I think that more of the villain is kind of like the theme of the show, like people being different.
Well, yeah, I think that kind of encompasses a lot of this. A lot of our lists, like, while there is either a personified evil or some sort of, I think thematically, like, there's Broadway shows have more of a theme evil than an actual person that is doing all of the evil. I don't know. I can't talk today. But yeah, he kind of, but he personifies that because he says that, well, in my land, animals don't talk. So now he doesn't want animals to talk.
Right.
And that leads into the same, like, because it's different, it's wrong.
Right.
Or it's bad. And that also carries into Elphaba being green. So she's green. So she has, she's different. That's bad. That's wrong.
Yeah. It's basically just like symbolism for racism.
I mean, yeah, it is. It is.
Which I feel like a lot of media in general always tries to tell it in another way so that people see racism in another light, if that makes sense. So, like, obviously her being green doesn't mean anything, but people in our world, say that, like, used to say that people being brown is a bad thing. It's the same kind of idea.
Yeah.
But they used a different way to tell it, so it's not like, I don't know, not as obvious.
Yeah, I feel like they do that so that it's not as in your face and not as, like, hey, like, smacking you in the face with it, which I have feelings about. Like, I kind of wish that they wouldn't do that and make it more like, racism
kind of like
is
more
bad.
like Hairspray.
Yeah, a lot more like Hairspray than Wicked.
But I also think it just means, like, people being different in general.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because, like, she has magical powers and they don't.
For sure. But yeah, that was my first villain. I mean, I don't think he's that complex of a character. I think that the whole reveal of him being, if for whatever reason you've seen Wicked without seeing The Wizard of Oz, like, the whole reveal of him not being a wizard and not having magical powers and being, like, Joe Blow, like, I think it's a good reveal if you haven't seen The Wizard of Oz. But it's not, I don't know, he's just not a complex character. There's nothing really
It's cut and dry.
more. Yeah, there's nothing more to him. There's nothing underneath.
So I'm going to move on to one of mine, kind of going off of, like, the thematic or, like, group villain. One of my favorite shows is Sound of Music, and I really wanted to talk about Sound of Music because at the beginning there isn't a villain for, like, the first half of the show. You don't really know about the Nazis too much until later when they have to, like, run away from them. You know a little bit just because of Rolf. I think I'm saying his name correctly. I always, like, stumble on it. You know a little bit just because of him, but the villain at the beginning is the father. Like, it's him trying to keep his children in a certain way and keeping them oppressed, basically.
Yeah. I don't know. We're using this word villain, and it sounds so much more monstrous than what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
it's just a trope villain.
Yeah, it's not that he was doing anything particularly heinous to them.
Right.
But definitely the antagonist in the beginning is the father.
Yeah. And then he comes around falls in love with Maria. Spoiler alert. And then it's the actual Nazis.
Yeah, like actual Nazis are the villain.
Yeah. And so it's not even just like their villain, it's kind of like their country's villain, which I think is really interesting. Especially a lot with like not war movies, like war musicals and stuff. A lot of it is whatever the enemy is at the time, which I think is interesting. Yeah, it was one of those things where I was trying to go through all of my favorite shows and think of like all the antagonists. And when I came across Sound of Music, I was like, oh no, wait, it's just Nazis. Like,
I mean,
there's no character.
I feel like if we're going to use the word villain, I think Nazis,
right.
like, I think they can be classified as villains.
Yeah. What's your next one?
My next one is Aaron Burr
Speaking of war musicals.
Because Hamilton. Which is interesting because Aaron Burr is probably my favorite character in the musical. Mm-hmm. I mean, he sings my favorite song, and I think he is such a... complex is like just... I don't want to use that word. Like, he's just an interesting character. Because of the fact that he is the polar opposite of Hamilton.
Right.
And I think he is a great villain. Mm-hmm. I think that he's with Hamilton throughout the entirety of the show. He's basically like not at his side, but like they're always like either competing against each other or like just like in each other's lives in one way or another.
Yeah, they keep meeting.
Thank you, Becca. And it's interesting because Hamilton like seeks him out in the beginning because he wants to be like him. And then he actually meets him and is like, whoa, what?
I'm going to talk as much as I want.
Exactly. Like, don't tell me not to talk. And then at the end, it's the whole, like, him actually shooting Hamilton is the polar opposite of what you've been led to believe about Aaron Burr the entire time.
I mean, kind of, but he also says that he's the one who shoots him in the beginning.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is, I don't count Alexander Hamilton the song like as part of the story, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I kind of count that like just as like the introduction to the characters, like these are the characters, and like not even so much just like this is Alexander Hamilton. So yes, we know that Burr shoots him, but like if you start from the next song, you start the story from the next song.
Yeah, forward. Isn't it from Aaron Burr, sir?
Yeah, from Aaron Burr. From Aaron Burr, sir. God, Lynn is he's such a good writer. Like that's where the story starts. It's when he gets to New York and he meets these characters. Like he starts meeting. I say characters. These are actual people. He starts meeting everybody, and if you started from there, like he's more hands off. He doesn't really have a stance on anything. Like that's his character. You know, talk less, smile more. That's Aaron Burr. So him like getting to the end and you listen to I don't know if it not World is Wide Enough, it's the one right before it.
God, you don't know?
I know, you would think I would know all of the things, but I am drawing a blank.
I mean, there's 36 songs, so like...
Actually, I was wrong. It is The World is Wide Enough, because it's the whole thing. All right. It just encompasses that entire scene. You know, he starts talking about, like, how he didn't want to leave his daughter, you know, how Hamilton had his glasses on, and, like, so obviously he was going to shoot him. And he starts, like, I feel like it was more in a panic than anything else. And, I love his character so much. And he goes on to say, like, now I'm the villain in your history. You know, and he, like, says this whole thing, and it's so good.
Yeah, it's cool because he's the narrator.
Yeah, that too.
Like, that's so interesting, because usually the narrator's the protagonist.
Yeah,
like,
or
the narrator...
someone, not even the protagonist, because even if you have, like, a third-party narrator, it's usually someone who is rooting for the protagonist.
Yeah, like Hades.
Yeah.
In Hadestown.
Hermes.
I mean, Hermes.
Not Hades.
Definitely not Hades.
Yeah, like Hermes. Like, Hermes isn't the protagonist, but he is a main character, someone who is very big in Orpheus's life.
I love listening to you say Orpheus and Eurydice.
Thank you. I hate you.
Now you know how I feel when I say Spanish names.
Whatever.
I'm not even Greek, but I love Greek mythology so much that I just know how to say things that I think it's funny.
I mean, his name is Orpheus, and I added an apostrophe, so it's Orpheus's. God.
English is hard.
Greek is hard, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a good example. Hermes is narrating Hadestown, and he's on the protagonist's. Wow. I'm just not gonna be able to
Say any S's
today. All right. He is on Orpheus's side.
There you go.
I just had to take a second. So for Burr to be the narrator of the story, being the antagonist, being the person who actually kills Hamilton, is extremely interesting. I think it's a great creative choice. I think that there's a lot of comedic relief in it because he goes throughout the entire show basically rolling his eyes at Hamilton the entire time. And
especially in like the room where it happens, it's such an interesting choice to have the narrator be someone that wasn't a part of that
song.
Because that whole song is just like he said, she said.
Yep.
Thomas claims, like, that's it. Burr doesn't know because he wasn't in the room where it happened.
I arranged the menu, the venue, the seating. But
yeah, so it makes sense. Or like even the reveal. I mean, obviously we know where our capital is. We know where Washington, D.C. is. But the reveal of how they came up to that conclusion makes it better because it comes from Hamilton telling Burr.
Yeah.
Burr wasn't a part of that day.
Yeah, it was Hamilton like bragging about the fact that he like outsmarted them.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
Got what he wanted and still have the banks in New York, which is what matters for him. And such a good song.
Because honestly, I've always wondered that. Like, I've always wondered why Washington, D.C. when our whole country started in New York.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to hear that from, Hamilton's point of view.
Yeah. No, and that song is kind of where Burr, I want to say, like, I don't, like, loses it, kind of. Like, he loses his composure so much in that song because up until now, he has been very composed, very, not soft-spoken, just, like, very eloquent in how he speaks, very, meticulous on what he says and how he says it and who he says it to.
Yeah, he is the politician that we know, whereas we don't know politicians like Hamilton.
Exactly. And in The Room Where It Happens, Burr, like, loses his head. He is sick of people like Hamilton, or a person like Hamilton, getting what he wants and not it happening in such an unconventional way, not happening the way that it's supposed to happen. So he like loses it and he's like, that's it, I'm gonna do me and whatever. And like,
then becomes senator.
Yeah. Even him performing it, I know you haven't seen it, but like, he like dances around and like Burr doesn't dance like at all the entire time, the entire first act and into The Room Where It Happens. Like, he's like dancing around, he jumps on a table, he's like, it's this height of emotion and like him just completely losing his mind and losing his composure. And that's where he kind of pivots from just being someone who competes with Hamilton to, I think, kind of the villain anti, person in the show, at least. And in his, obviously this isn't exactly historically accurate, it's a Broadway show. I'm 100% sure that none of this happened the way that it happens in the show, but speaking just about the show, it's kind of where he goes from competing with him to like trying to be the best lawyer, trying to be whatever, to then saying, you know what, screw this guy, I'm gonna do me and I'm gonna do it better.
Right.
And I love Leslie Odom Jr. That is all.
Room Where It Happened is definitely one of my favorite songs. Like you said, it's the pivot point. Like, it's turning him from like in Nonstop, where he's just competing with, not even really competing, because he said he calls himself co-counsel to Hamilton. Like,
they work together. Like,
right.
Yeah, because Room Where It Happens, like I said, from there, it's kind of a snowball effect because the next song, he beats Hamilton's father-in-law to be senator. And then Hamilton's like, well, why would you do that if you know that's my father-in-law? And then he takes it personally. And then it's just, and then, it's kind of snowballs from there. And then he runs for president and is like campaigning, which was like never something that was done up until then. And I mean, not that they had much to go on, but that's not what was done. And kind of just doing all these things to irk like Hamilton and just
antagonize him.
Yeah.
Whereas before he was always just kind of doing, I don't think Burr up until that point had been antagonistic towards Hamilton. No. He was more like existing with him and being like, you're an idiot. Like,
exactly. Rolling his eyes at him. Yeah. And Hamilton never saw him as anything other than someone, number one, that he looked up to in the beginning. And even in Nonstop, like, he still goes to him for help. Even if
he's the first person.
Yeah, even if Burr doesn't help him, you know. And even after Hamilton's wedding, like, he's trying to give him advice. You know, he kicks out all his friends and is like, "Oh, Burr, let's talk, let's hang out. What's going on?"
That's one of my favorite parts in the whole show.
It's so good
when it's like, "You are the worst, Burr," and then he kicks everyone out, and I'm like, it's just such a good line from Daveed Diggs. Ugh. You are the worst.
His
Burr.
terrible French accent.
Yeah. I love it. I like it because it's so easy to imitate. Because, like, real French accents I can't do.
Yeah, you can just do bad French accents.
Right.
But yeah, like, he's such a good villain. Like, he really is.
And it's so interesting because he's, like, the villain just because this is Hamilton's story.
Yeah.
Like, Hamilton would be his villain.
He is, and this sounds stupid, but he's only the villain because he actually killed him. Like,
right.
Not that he was a villain to him his entire life. It was just because of the duel. And because Hamilton, like, didn't back him up. And, like, even after he shoots him, like, the song says that he, like, tries to, like, help and people just kind of shoo him away. Which didn't actually happen. Like, Burr actually, like, ran around town saying that he killed Hamilton, like, excitedly. But we're talking about the show here. But yeah, like, I think he's such a great villain.
Because if this was the Aaron Burr, or just called Burr instead of Hamilton, Hamilton would be the antagonist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just love it.
All of these are and it's funny because now we're talking the second character that I've brought up that I just talked about the wizard, and in The Wizard of Oz, he's not the villain. But in Wicked, he is the villain.
Right, because it's Elsie's story.
Exactly. And it's the same thing, like, with this. Since this is Hamilton, Aaron Burr is the villain. But if the show was Burr, you know, Hamilton would be the villain in this.
Yeah. And that brings me to my next one, which is one of my favorite villains of all time, Javert. For the same kind of reason, because if we're, like, going parallels between Hamilton and Les Mis, there are a ton. But let's just go with just the two characters. Valjean and Hamilton and Javert and Burr, their relationship in, like, the way that they handle it, I feel like is very similar. Yeah. Because Javert is constantly going after Valjean, obviously. But, like, the way that they talk to each other and the way that they, you know, are the two pillars on either side of the show are very similar. Because for the same thing, Javert wouldn't be the villain if it wasn't Valjean's story. He's literally a law officer.
Yeah, like doing his job.
Yeah, that's all he's doing is his job. I mean, he takes it a little personally, but he's just doing his job.
A little personally?
Maybe a little bit more than a little.
He ends up killing himself.
Oh, I know.
Because
to get away from Valjean.
Because he couldn't arrest Valjean.
Yeah.
Like, not couldn't physically, but couldn't, like, morally, I guess.
Right.
And then he kills himself. That's a little bit more than a little bit.
And the only reason I consider him a villain is because of his part in the revolution. Like, his whole part in One Day More, where he's talking about all the boys, let them wet themselves with blood. Like, he is against the revolution, which the revolution is illegal.
I mean, yeah. A lot of these, and actually the next two that I have on my list are kind of the same, that they're villains, and all of these, I guess, on this list you're only a villain depending on what side of the story you're on.
Right. I mean, I have people that I consider not villains in my life, but, like, antagonists in my life that they probably consider the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just because I'm seeing it from my point of view, and I can only hear what's inside my head. I can't hear what's inside theirs.
I'm so glad that I started the show out talking about the wizard, because he has a song in Wicked called Wonderful, where he's talking all about himself, obviously. And he says, "A man's called a traitor or liberator, a rich man's a thief or philanthropist. Is one a crusader or a ruthless invader? It's all in which label is able to persist." So it depends on what side of the story you're on. It depends on whose perspective it is that we're watching. Who is the villain?
Oh, yeah, because...
unless it's Nazis.
Yeah, if it's Nazis, then they're just a villain.
Okay. I want to make sure that is said.
Unless it's Nazis. Because even if you go back to Hamilton, King George probably thinks George Washington is the villain.
Oh, for sure.
He's like, bro, what are you doing with my colonies over there? You're messing everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, Javert is definitely, he takes his job too seriously. But at the same time, like, they're in the process of trying to start a revolution, which if you are, a law enforcer, if you're a cop, if you're a politician, like, that's not something that you want to happen.
Right.
So, yeah, of course he's trying to stop the revolution.
Yeah. It's one of those things where Jean Valjean literally evades the law and breaks the law and, like, does all of these things to get away from the law. He's literally a criminal. And yet he's the hero of our story. You know, like, it shows that there's, like, different sides to everything. And that's one of the cool things about musical theater is a lot of the stories revolve around that, trying to show, like, other people's perspective.
Well, speaking of criminals,
yikes.
unless you have anything else to say about
I'm
Les
good.
Mis. Speaking of criminals, I mean, yes, Jean Valjean was a criminal. He stole some bread, like he stole some candlesticks and stuff.
Yeah.
But at least he didn't slice anybody's throat.
Oh no! I know where you're going with this.
The next villain that I am going to talk about is Judge Turpin from Sweeney Todd. And, like, neither character is a great person. Judge Turpin literally, like, exiled Sweeney Todd, who I can't remember, Benjamin Barker. That's what his name was before he was Sweeney Todd.
Uh-huh.
Exiled Benjamin Barker just to get with his wife. Like, that's the story, right? And like, may or may not have raped her. And then takes his daughter in, like, as his ward. And then now that she's, like, not even of age, is, like, trying to, like, sleep with her. So he's not the best guy. He is a terrible villain. He is a terrible person. But at the same time, when your protagonist is killing people and feeding them to other people, like, how much what defines a villain? You know? Like, Sweeney Todd's not a great guy. He's just trying to, like, avenge the death of, or what he thought was the death of his wife, and the fact that his daughter was kidnapped from him, and the fact that he was, unjustly, like, exiled from London. But at the same time, like, you don't need to kill everybody. Like, you really don't. So I don't know if I'm talking more about Sweeney Todd or Judge Turpin. But they're both pretty terrible.
It's kind of like Jean Valjean and Javert.
Yeah, but I don't think Jean Valjean is a terrible person.
Oh, I don't like Jean.
Really?
I don't think he's interesting.
Okay, but there's a difference between being interesting and being a bad person. Like,
true.
I think that he stole because he had nothing else to do. Mm-hmm. And, like...
But I also think he's a liar. And
oh, yeah. I
cheats
guess.
at a lot of things. Like, I don't think all criminals are bad people by any means.
I think that there's a definite redemption arc for Jean Valjean.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a redemption arc for Sweeney Todd.
No. Jean Valjean doesn't kill people.
Yeah. Nope.
So he's not even...
That's not even bringing in Mrs. Lovett, who had the idea to feed people to other people, and then, like, doesn't tell Sweeney Todd that his wife is actually still alive. That show has a lot of problems.
Yeah, I've never seen this show, and I've only heard, like, one song from it, so you explaining this whole time, I'm like, wild.
Oh, wow. You've never seen Sweeney... Not even the movie?
No.
Okay, so... That's the story.
I get the gist. You just told me.
Yeah, that's the story. Is Judge Turpin exiles Benjamin Barker because he, like, sees his wife and his wife is gorgeous and this whole thing, and he wants to try to get with the judge, the judge wants to try to get with the wife. Yeah. And then the story starts with Sweeney Todd coming back, and obviously he's more of a, he has some issues. And he goes back to where, like, his barbershop used to be, and Mrs. Lovett had, like, bought the building and was making pies. And she, like, sold pies, like savory pies, because it's London, not like pies like in the American sense. And yeah, they're just kind of terrible people.
I mean, like, I know the gist. So I guess Sweeney Todd would be more of an anti-hero.
Yeah. I don't think there's a single hero in that show.
Just all messed up.
Yeah, because even, like, the little kid that they hire ends up killing Sweeney Todd at the end. So, like, he kills somebody. Everybody dies at the end.
Spoiler.
Sorry.
That's what you should call this.
Sorry. Yeah, so Judge Turpin is a terrible human being. He, in the movie, like, they show you a scene of where he's, like, charging someone to be hanged for, like, the third time that it's a crime, and it's, like, a 6 or 7-year-old kid. Exactly.
Wow.
Like, he's a terrible human being.
I mean, to be fair, he raped a woman, so, like...
Yeah.
That's pretty much the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about them. They're both terrible. I don't even know who the villain is anymore.
I know you just talked through that whole thing.
I talked myself through the entire musical, and I'm just like, yeah, all these people suck. I love the show. Don't get me wrong, I love the show. I think it's super interesting to watch. It's very dark, obviously.
Isn't Johnny Depp in it?
In the movie. I had seen the show before I saw the movie.
Yeah.
That was one of the few instances where I had seen the show before the movie.
Speaking of movies, I'm so excited for In the Heights. I was just thinking about that today.
Oh, I'm excited for In the Heights. I'm excited for West Side Story. I am lukewarm at best about Cat. It's gonna be good.
I think
I don't know about Cats, but the other two are gonna be good.
I'm excited for In the Heights just because I know how much you love In the Heights. But that's probably the top of my list just because I know you're going to be so excited. But if we're going just from shows I like, I'm really excited about West Side Story. There's so much good dancing in that show.
I'm pretty sure last episode you just said that you weren't even that into West Side Story.
I wasn't into Revive. I don't want it to be revived on Broadway.
It was already revived on Broadway.
I know. I want it to be a movie. They can make any we can't get into this again. But they can make any show they want into a movie. That's all I'm saying. I just don't want it to be on Broadway.
West Side Story is going to be great. In the Heights is going to be great. Cats is going to be a movie that comes out. I'm trying really hard to stay optimistic about it, but every time I see a trailer, I'm like, man, that's terrifying. That's terrifying.
Still haven't seen a trailer.
Good. We're gonna watch it, and we're gonna talk about it. And it's not
because I don't watch trailers, even though I don't watch trailers.
You don't watch trailers.
But it's because I don't watch.
I'm just gonna pretend it's because you don't watch trailers. I just I'm terrified, and we're gonna watch it. We're gonna talk about it on the show when it comes out in December.
I know.
So I need you to start mentally preparing for that.
I already know I'm gonna go see it. It's gonna be hilarious.
But yeah, it's a little terrifying. It's definitely going to be a movie that comes out and that I'm going to watch. Okay, back to what we were talking about.
I just really love In the Heights lately.
That makes me so happy.
And by that, I mean I listened to 3 of the songs, but I really like those songs.
That's fine. Just start listening to more. And I understand half of it is kind of in Spanish, so it's a little difficult to follow if you don't speak Spanish. Especially because it's so fast. Mm-hmm. And
it's a Lin show.
And it's a Lin show, and it's a lot of words. But it's such a good show, and it's such a good cast album. Mandy Gonzalez is amazing. Karen Olivo, again, second episode in a row. She's awesome.
Christopher Jackson.
Oh, Chris Jackson.
I haven't said that in a while.
Jackson. I know, I think it's been a couple of episodes.
Look at me. Well, Chris Jackson at the top, apparently.
And, obviously, Lin-Manuel.
Yeah, even though I shit on him last episode.
Lin-Manuel.
Oh my god. So I recently, this is a side tangent, Edie and I are both fans of the McElroys who do The Adventure Zone, and they have another show called My Brother and Me. And I finally got
their main show?
Yeah, their main show. But The Adventure Zone is their main show to me. And Lin-Manuel Miranda was a huge fan of theirs before he became friends with them. And so they were talking about it on their episode.
Before Hamilton. So before he was super duper famous.
Yeah. And they didn't know him yet. And so Justin, one of the brothers, called him Lin-Manuel.
It was great.
Edie died.
I haven't listened to My Brother and Me yet because I'm trying to finish The Adventure Zone before this next arc has its last episode, which is in a week.
It'll be the day after this episode comes out. No, it'll be a week after this episode.
Yeah, it'll be next week. So she randomly will send me clips of their show, and I just I die. Lin-Manuel. What was I talking about before that? I don't remember. Oh, In the Heights is awesome. Everybody should listen to In the Heights.
My favorite song is Breathe.
There's no villain in The Heights other than gentrification.
What is gentrification?
When a poor neighborhood starts getting popular, so they push out all the poor people.
Yeah. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So there's this artist, Watts, that has a song that's kind of just like that. It's called Kill a Hipster, because he says, kill a hipster, save the hood. And so...
I love that. Oh my god.
You would like him. He's really good.
What is this? All of this music recently that you've been mentioning that is not Broadway music. I'm so confused. Or Taylor Swift. or Jonas Brothers. I'm so confused.
You should listen to Watts. He's great.
I will.
He's a rapper.
I'm even more dumbfounded right now.
I know. I mentioned Young Jeezy last week. I'm mentioning Watsky this week.
I'm so proud of you.
Cultured human being, apparently.
Apparently.
But yeah, he has a whole song about like
kill a hipster, save the hood. I love that.
Yeah, it's really good.
That's hilarious.
And kind of like on the same idea, my next villain is Joe Pulitzer from Newsies. Mm-hmm. And he definitely is the one that's trying to like get rid of all the poor people because he's spiking the Newsies prices up.
Yeah.
He just like personifies quote unquote the man. He you know, he's the big wig up in the tower that controls everything without anyone getting a say.
Yeah.
He is, I don't know, he's just personification of authority. Like that, the real villain in like Newsies is authority in general, because there are people that have control over the Newsies that the Newsies don't want them to have control over. And I think like the way that he handles it, like he's a very stereotypical villain, which I love. Like the scene in Newsies when Catherine is like in the chair that's turned around and Pulitzer is just strutting across his office, just being like, well, Jack Kelly, welcome to my lair. And he's just like, he's giving the typical villain speech.
Yeah, like he's leaning into it. Like he knows. Yeah. He knows he's the villain.
Yeah, and he thinks he's gonna win. Like in his mind, he's already won because he has this connection with Catherine.
It is so funny that of all of the ones that we've talked about, like he is the clear-cut villain. Uh-huh. And I specifically left like all of the Disney musicals off of this list because of the fact
this is a Disney musical.
Well, yeah, I know, but that kind of plays into it because like the Disney musicals have a clear-cut villain. Lion King, Hans is the villain.
No, I see Elsa more as the villain.
Hans is the villain.
I know,
Hans is trying to kill them both.
I don't think he's that good of a villain.
I'm not saying he's a good villain. I'm saying he's the villain.
Okay.
I mean, in Lion King, you have Scar. In Aladdin, you have Jafar. You know.
Those rhyme.
They did. In Beauty and the Beast, it's a little more convoluted. You have Gaston, but you kind of just have the townspeople in general.
Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. People being different.
Yeah. So I think it's funny that Broadway shows tend to kind of have a less clear-cut way of defining what or who a villain is than movies, because the Disney ones are all movies. Than movies or any kind of other media.
Well, because if you think about it, like I'm just staring at a Dear Evan Hansen playbill. Evan is the villain in Dear Evan Hansen.
Oh, for sure.
He is the worst, like, he is the worst person in that whole show.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he is the villain.
But then, if you talk to Connor, his parents were the villain. Society was the villain. Everybody else was the villain.
You talk to Zoe,
Connor was the villain. You know, so, again, they kind of do a better job at writing these characters and writing, I guess, the ambiguity of good and evil and or right and wrong into these characters and these shows than maybe a Disney movie or a Marvel movie, which is also a Disney movie, or anything like that.
Like, even, again, I'm staring at a High School Musical playbill. Even if you think of, like, High School Musical, Sharpay is the straight-cut villain of Troy and Gabriella.
Yeah.
But if you ask Sharpay...
Well, I mean, to be fair, if you ask any villain, they're not the villain, except for maybe Pulitzer.
He knows.
But yeah, I think that the Broadway shows, at least the ones that we've talked about, have done a kind of a better job at kind of showcasing the fact that it's not always black and white. It's not always right and wrong. There's definitely
like real
more.
Life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that.
Okay.
Were you done talking about Pulitzer?
Oh yeah, he's just a typical villain. That's it.
So, on that same note about who is the villain, really.
Wait, are you going into our shared one?
No.
Okay, good. But start again. I'm sorry.
We talked about the shared. No, it's fine. I'm gonna leave that in.
Okay.
We talked about the shared one as if it's the only one that could possibly be two, but I just talked about Sweeney Todd that possibly had two, and now I'm going into another one that possibly has two.
Okay.
Which is Phantom, because I guess Raoul is the villain, but is he like actually like? Isn't the Phantom actually the villain. He's the one that is
He's the
causing
Evan.
all of these problems. But also, I love Phantom, like the Phantom. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I love him. And I think that him having to have grown up with a disfigured face and people like treating him like garbage because of his disfigured face caused him to be the person that he is.
Like Elphaba.
Elphaba's not the... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said... You said Elphaba, and in my head I heard Elsa, and I was just like, what?
Same actress.
Sorry. My bad.
No, like Elphaba.
Yeah.
Because to a lot of people, Elfie would be the villain. She is in The
for
Wizard.
sure.
Wizard of
For
Oz.
sure. So I don't want to say he's the villain just because I love him so much, but he is. I mean, he's basically scaring these people into paying him. Like, he's scaring people as an opera ghost. He kills a bunch of people. He, is luring this like basic child, because I think Christine's like 17, maybe 18 in this show. Into his actual lair underneath the opera house, and like gets really upset when she tries to see his actual face. And
You know what I just realized?
What?
The only reason I know the story of Phantom of the Opera is because of the DCOM Phantom of the Cineplex. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes, I have.
That is the only reation I know the plot to Phantom of the Opera. Because I was like, why does it sound so familiar?
I hate you so much. I hate you
I love
so
that movie.
much. Wow. But yeah, like
Now that makes so much more sense.
like he's not the greatest person. He's definitely killed a few people, and makes Christine basically have to save Raoul by choosing the Phantom at the end, which is terrible. I mean, he lets him go at the end. I think there's a little bit of a redemption for him at the end, but he's the protagonist. Well, I guess Christine would be the protagonist. I don't know. The show's called The Phantom of the Opera. I feel like it's the Phantom story. Like, he's the main guy, and Raoul's kind of this, like, childhood friend that comes in and tries to take away his girl, even though Christine is not his girl, because he's a little psychotic.
Isn't he old?
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely older than her. Because Madame...
But he's, like, in his 30s.
Probably. I don't know if it's actually, like, in the show, if it said how old he is, but, like, Madame Giry, like, saves him. Like, that's how, like, he's brought to the opera house. It was when Madame Giry was, like, a child.
So he's not an
Madame
actual
Giry's
phantom,
old.
he's a person, right?
Oh, yeah, he's a person.
Okay. I was always iffy on that.
He's a person.
So why is he called the Phantom?
Because they've called him the opera ghost, like that's what they call him, like the owners of the actual opera house. Because no one's ever seen him, but somehow they'll like randomly hear him like laughing or yelling or telling them to leave box 5 empty.
I love that this is just an episode of Eni explaining musicals that Becca doesn't know the plot of.
That makes me so sad because like we wanted to talk about like musicals that you don't know that I know. And I feel like we can't do that anymore because I've basically just explained to you all of the shows.
There's probably more.
But yeah, so he's not actually a phantom. He's not actually a ghost. He is a person.
Okay, cool. Didn't know that.
He is. And if you're talking like timeline, and if Love Never Dies is actually canonical,
It's fan.
I mean, it was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber.
So was the last season of Gilmore Girls, and that's fan fiction.
Are you saying the Netflix thing?
No, the like actual season.
Okay.
Because her and oh my god, I forgot his name. Oh my god, Logan.
I was like, Logan?
All I could think of was his real name because her and Logan broke up, and I don't accept that because they just wanted them not to be a couple, and so they broke up in the last episode. But it's fine.
So
the whole
because
season is stupid.
Because they broke up, that's like fan fiction.
No,
That's
but also
your
that season is
justification?
stupid. Like none of the characters do anything that they would do. Like I haven't watched Gilmore Girls in like 3 years. I had this opinion 3 years ago, but I can't be expected to remember every single one of my opinions.
Wow,
I had points
okay.
then.
Anyways. So if you're talking canonically, like Love Never Dies, like you find out that Christine's kid is actually the Phantom's kid.
Yikes, that's
Yeah.
gross.
Why?
Because he's like 30.
Uh-huh.
And you just said she was like 17.
I don't know how old she actually... No, that would be gross, but I don't know how old she actually is.
Oh.
I would imagine that I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be like in her late teens.
Well, then that's
Probably. Apparently, okay, this is why I thought she was super young. There was a mistranslation. So people thought she was 15, but she was actually 20.
I mean, fine.
She was 20.
Yeah.
Hold on, now I'm looking up how old he is.
I mean, she's an adult. She can do what she wants.
There are differences recurs in 1881 movie, 267 the movie is just he's in his early 40s. So it's still very big.
It's still yucky,
difference.
but like not as yucky. It is not like illegal yucky.
Okay. Well, the point is he's not a ghost. He's a person. He is a very, very flawed person, and I do not mean that physically.
Yeah. We don't care about his physical features.
I also, like, while Raul would be the antagonist in his story, he's definitely not a villain. Like, he just kind of met up with his childhood friend and they fell in love and they're just trying to be together, but there's this crazy guy that's wandering the halls.
Oh, Raul is Christine's childhood friend.
Yes.
Oh, I thought he was Phantom.
No.
That's why
No. You really need to watch the family opera.
I don't like the music.
I don't care. Like, the fact that we can't have a conversation about it is, like, it bothers me as a person.
Can I watch the Gerard Butler version?
I guess.
I'll at least get the plot.
That's why I said I guess. Like, I don't need you to like it. I just need you to at least understand the words that are coming out of my mouth.
Me trying to get people into Les Mis. Go watch Hugh Jackman in Les Mis. I just need you to understand it. You don't have to like it.
Exactly. Even though, again, unpopular opinion, I don't think Gerard Butler's that bad. I know that everybody hates him, but I thought he did a good job for what he was. I don't think it was terrible. And I think he is very expressive in his voice, even if his voice isn't the best. Mm-hmm. So I think that it was decent.
Kind of like Josh Gad. Josh Gad doesn't have an incredible singing voice, but he's very expressive and gets the point across.
Yeah.
I like Josh Gad.
Gerard Butler has that, like, angry voice set very well, which the Phantom is very angry all the time, so
it's fine.
All right, who's next on your list?
My favorite villain of all time is next on my list. And it's only because...
Didn't you say that about Javert?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
But he sings my favorite villain song, which is Blood in the Water from Legally Blonde. And
I just heard that song for the first time off of your playlist the other day, and it's so good.
It's amazing. Okay, so I always want to play male roles. Like, if anyone asked me what my dream roles are, it would be Emmett Forrest from Legally Blonde, Washington, Seymour. Like, I just like the male heroes. Like, I know Washington isn't the hero, but he's also not the villain. You know? So I usually don't like villain characters. However, if I could play Professor Callahan from Legally Blonde, I would just die. I think he is such an interesting character, especially coming from a show that is based off of a movie. His character in Legally Blonde, the movie, is boring as heck. But his character in the musical is so interesting because of the way that he plays it. Like in the song Blood in the Water, like if you don't know the movie, it's a very villainous song. It's very much like, you know, it's
the first day of class, and it's him basically explaining to these, like, freshman law students that they need to be sharks.
Right.
And they, like, it doesn't matter how sad the story is, like, they need to find the hole in it in order to defend, you know, whoever their client is.
Right. And so he immediately, you see him as this, like, hard ass that, you know, that wants everything done a certain way. And then you eventually build a relationship with him where he, like, believes in Elle and thinks that she's, like, really intelligent after he kicks her out of class, but that's fine. That was at the beginning. And then by the end, you find out that he really is the villain. Like, he hits on Elle, kicks her out of the program, takes away her internship. Like, he's the villain that she has to defeat in court, and she takes over his case.
Yeah.
But I just think that, first of all, I think he's interesting because he plays the part of, like, that stereotypical authority male figure to a, like really excitable and positive young female. So, like, we hear stories all the time about, like, sexual assault and stuff like that, and he represents that character in our society. He represents the predator.
Yeah.
And the way that they handle it, I think, is really interesting, and I just think that he's, like, the very stereotypical predator character, but like attitude towards Elle originally changes, and Blood in the Water is the greatest villain song of all time in musical theater. Even though that's not even him like telling his villainous plans, but it's like him setting up his character, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good. I just love Legally Blonde. And I know I went on a whole rant last week about it, but I just love it.
I still haven't seen it.
It's so good. It's on YouTube.
I know. You tell me that every time I tell you I haven't seen
I know.
it. And I still haven't seen it.
That's okay. I haven't seen Phantom.
Phantom's been out a lot longer than Legally Blonde.
It's true. Legally Blonde's only been out for 12 years.
Really?
2007.
It's been that long?
2007.
Wow. I don't know why I feel like that show came out like 5 years ago.
Nope.
I know, but then again, I keep thinking that Aladdin came out like last year and it's been 5 years ago already. Okay, so then let's go into like our kind of final villain.
The show that we're going to talk about, one of the most clever and interesting shows I think exists.
It's such a good show.
And it's just like I use the word clever so much, but I just think that the way that it's set up,
the way that it's
clever.
told.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that we chose to talk about this show is because this show is the epitome of basically what we've been talking about for the past hour.
Mm-hmm.
In that it depends on who you're asking
Mm-hmm.
who the villain is. It depends on whose story you're telling, who the villain in that person's story is. The last 5 years, both of the characters are their own. Not only their own villain, but each other's villain.
Like it starts with
Jamie.
Not Jamie.
Is leaving.
No, but what the girl's Kathy.
Thank you.
I had to sing through one of Jamie's songs in order to get to Kathy.
It's like
it starts with Kathy.
If I didn't believe.
Yeah, that was the song I was I will not lose so you can be comfortable, Kathy. That one. But it starts with Kath sobbing about how awful Jamie is. Like, about how Jamie is leaving. Jamie has decided this is over. Jamie's made this decision. I had no choice in this. I am the victim.
Yeah.
That's what that whole song is about. And honestly, when I first listened to the soundtrack, I only listened to the first half before I saw the movie. With Jeremy Jordan and Anna Kendrick, aka the great. They're just
I love them both. I have
too.
like monster crushes on both of those humans.
I love Anna Kendrick because she's from Portland, Maine.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We get her and we get Patrick Dempsey, and that's it.
Man, those are two really awesome people to get, though.
I agree. And what's his face? Adam Sandler is from New Hampshire. He has like a house near one of my friends.
Yeah, but that's not Maine.
Yeah, but it's New Hampshire.
But it's not Maine.
New Hampshire.
It's
whatever.
not Maine.
So it basically just starts with her being the victim. Her saying, like, this is all Jamie's fault. Us breaking up is Jamie's fault.
Yeah, so you go in saying, like, oh my god, Jamie's this terrible person.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the story unfolds.
Yeah. So, like, if you took apart the whole show and put, like, Jamie's songs on one side and Kathy's songs on the other, they are so different. Like, because Kathy is such a negative person, even at the beginning, like, the way that she talks about herself, the way that she thinks about herself, and all of that.
Yeah.
She's a very negative person, so a lot of her songs are a lot slower and a lot... I don't want to say just slower, because obviously she has faster songs too, but a lot of her songs where she's by herself is woe is me.
Yeah, they're all self-deprecating. They're all just like, even when he asks her to marry him. So she's like, she starts listing like all the things that she does wrong.
Right.
So yeah, Kathy is definitely the I guess pessimist.
Yeah.
The in the relationship, and Jamie is the complete opposite. Like,
he's
Jamie
like
is just super happy-go-lucky, and like, he is awesome, and he's apparently this great writer and this whole thing, and just wants to make her happy.
Yeah.
And she's just never happy.
Right. And so, like, I originally, like, didn't like Jamie. My first listen through, when I didn't listen through the whole thing, I just listened to the first half. And then when I started watching the movie, I realized that the only reason I was thinking that is because I was seeing everything from Kathy's point of view. And then Jamie comes in, especially with Moving Way Too Fast, which is one of my favorite songs from it. I actually run to it the best.
Yeah.
He is just so excited that not only does he get all of this money for doing something that he's already done, but he gets to share it with Kath.
Yeah.
Like, that's what a lot of that song is about. And so this character that you think is someone who is an awful human being, because that's what Kathy's told you to think, you know, has his own, has has his own way of looking at things and his own way of experiencing what's going on around them.
Yeah. I think that maybe because this is such a less fantastical, less this is a more realistic kind of show where you're talking about like two humans on Earth in this day and age, with no kind of like superpowers or special powers, and we're not talking about Hamilton, you know, like and not something as crazy as a barber who slits people's throat and eats them. Like it's a lot easier to kind of dissect it because you realize that these two people just weren't meant to be together.
Right.
Like there isn't necessarily a villain. I mean, I think it sucks that Jamie like ends up cheating on her, but
Yeah.
I feel like they were already emotionally separated, which is a whole discussion for
Not
different
this
discussion.
podcast.
Yeah, not this podcast. So it's interesting because between the first and like third song, no, like fourth song, all you see is Kathy's perspective, and you just see like it starts with Jamie leaving her, and then the next song is how happy they were in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to See I'm Smiling when it's, you know, Jamie leaving her on her birthday in Ohio.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just only see her perspective. And you're like, oh my God, Jamie's this terrible person. Like, well, oh my God, what the hell's going on? Like, why is this like breaking my heart right now? And then on the flip side, like when you start seeing like how jealous Kathy was of him, how like she just like didn't want to celebrate his success and didn't want, even though this guy literally told her, quit your job and just put all of your focus into what you're doing, into your acting so that you can do what you want to do. Don't worry about money. And she still like is super resentful for him resentful of him because he's successful. Is super like, I don't want to go to any of the parties because they're all about you. And like, it's just not a terrible person, but is just resentful. And it's this couple that you root for in the beginning, like not necessarily the beginning, but like kind of in the beginning of you know, their relationship. And then the more you see them together, the more you see them interact together, you realize they're just like not meant to be together.
Yeah. Because I still kind of, even through all of his songs, I still didn't like Jamie until If I Didn't Believe in You happened.
Oh my God, that song.
Like that.
Well, yeah, because you have the song. What's the song? A Miracle Would Happen. Like right after they got married, where he's like at a bar with a bunch of girls and they're all coming on to him, and he's like struggling apparently. So yeah, like that again. He's not a perfect person. She's not a perfect person,
and that's what makes the show so interesting.
He talks about he was like what, like 24. So they're like relatively young. I just and then the Shmuel song happens. And I'm just like, man, this guy, like, he's trying, like he wants her to be successful. He wants her to be happy. You know, the Shmuel song is where he tells her, for those that don't know, is where he tells her like, don't worry about money, quit your waitress job, like just go and act and go to auditions and get new headshots and do what you gotta do so that you can be happy in what you're doing. And then it kind of continues to happen and they get married. You have the next 10 minutes, they get married. But yeah, If I Didn't Believe in You, like completely breaks my heart.
Especially when he says, I will not lose so you can be comfortable, Kathy.
Yep.
Ugh.
No, what is it? I think it's I will not fail for you to be comfortable. I will not lose because you can't win.
Yeah.
Oh, my heart.
And he just yells it.
Yeah, and it's aggressive. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, it's a lot, but at the same time, like, I feel like he just needed to get that off his chest.
Well, yeah, and we've also all been in a situation like that. We've all been in a situation where you are so happy and so excited to share this with someone, and then they just hate on it, you know? Like, I've had that with friendships before. Not so much. Like, yeah. So, like,
I struggle with that so hard with some of my friends, like, that... Especially, like, friends that don't have, like, the same interests as me. Like, so how excited for example, how excited I am about this podcast. Like, I have friends that don't listen to musical theater, that have never listened to a podcast before in their lives. So, like, I get super excited. I'm like, oh, man, you know, we hit this, you know, mark. Like, we got this many downloads, and I didn't think that was going to happen. I'm so happy. And they're just like, yeah, okay, whatever, me. You know? So, I get that. And yeah, I feel like everybody has had that situation, whether it be a friendship, whether it be a relationship, whether it be your family, you know, that just like craps on your success or what you consider your success. Like,
but also we've been on the flip side too, where everyone's been on the flip side where they're jealous of the person who is getting all of this success, and we're like, well, why didn't I get that?
Yeah.
You know, like I love the last 5 years because it's so relatable. Like, because I can see both Jamie and Kathy's side.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I can never remember Kathy's name, apparently. There's like 2 characters in the whole show.
Right? Like, you don't need to remember
Anybody else.
any other names. Jesus, I can't talk today. Yeah, the show is so good, and the movie's great, and yeah.
And that kind of like, it was a good place to land, a good place to end, because it kind of encompasses all of what we've been talking about this whole hour.
For sure. And it depends on whose perspective you're looking at as to who the villain is, unless it's Nazis.
Unless it's Nazis.
On that note, I guess we'll end it here. You guys, did we miss anybody? Like, is there a clear-cut villain that we just, like, didn't talk about? You know, let us know. Tweet at us, DM us on Instagram. The show is at SincerelyUsPod. And if you want to tweet at me or DM me on Instagram personally, it's at _EenyMeeny. That's INYMEENY.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Becca Eddows, BECCAEDDOWS. Our logo and art is by Synergetic Art on Twitter. She's great. Go tweet her. Tell her how awesome she is.
We love Sin.
She's great. And to end it on a more positive note, even though we were talking about villains, a quote from Aaron Burr: "Love doesn't discriminate between the sinners and the saints."
Sincerely, us.